Once upon a time in the dusty, sun-baked cartoon town of Dusty Picture Gulch, where tumbleweeds roll like they were late for auditions, and every building looked like it had been designed by a very enthusiastic 5-year-old with unlimited budget, lived Jean-Pierre, the most dramatically romantic cowboy this side of the Mississippi, and possibly the other side too, but he never checked.
Jean-Pierre wore his brown cowboy hat at a perfectly rakish angle. His red bandana was always fluttering heroically, even when there was no wind, and his boots had never once stepped in actual cow pie.
Because he believed cow pies were unworthy of his aura, he was the town's unofficial poet laureate, sheriff on occasion, and full-time daydreamer. His favorite activity, staring soulfully at the horizon while murmuring French phrases like "Mon cœur bat pour toi" to absolute nobody. Oh, 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 Natasha, the town's beloved baker turned princess in denial. She wore the most ridiculously poofy blue dress with layers upon layers of frills, because one can never have too much flu. A little white headscarf and earrings that jingle like wind chimes every time she laughed, which was often Natasha believed life was too short for boring clothes or boring days, so she spent her mornings kneading dough and her afternoons accidentally turning ordinary errands into full-blown musical numbers.
One fateful Tuesday, Natasha found a strange card fluttering in the wind outside her bakery. It was sparkly, smelled faintly of clouds and vanilla, and had golden writing that read,
with a tiny angel doodle at the bottom. She read it aloud in her sweetest voice.
"Your angel guidance is to find quiet space, reflect, recuperate, claim time and space for myself."
She tilted her head.
Sounds boring. I claim time and space for
or a nap, or maybe for painting the saloon pink.
That's when Jean-Pierre rode up on his horse,
which was actually just a very patient rocking horse he refused to admit wasn't real.
He tipped his hat dramatically. "Natasha, ma chérie, I've seen this card in the wind. It is a sign we must introspect together under the stars with poetry."
Natasha giggled, "Jean-Pierre, the only stars you're seeing are the ones from bumping your head on low doorways. But okay, let's try this quiet space thing. Maybe it'll make my croissants rise better." They decided the quietest spot in town was the old abandoned painter shed behind the saloon. Inside, among dusty canvases and forgotten brushes, stood the weirdest thing either of them had ever seen. A giant living paintbrush named Pippa the paintbrush. She was bright pink, fuzzy at the bristles, had enormous sparkling blue eyes, and dripped neon pink paint everywhere, like she was perpetually melting in the cutest way possible. Pippa bounced excitedly high, Pippa. I was cursed by a grumpy art critic to be a brush forever, but I can paint anything with love, joy, and chaos. Wanna see before they could answer. Pippa grabbed a blob of glowing pink paint,
somehow using her own bristles as hands,
and flung it straight at Jean-Pierre. Jean-Pierre froze now, covered head to toe in shimmering pink glittered. His hat was now a sparkling tiara, his bandana a fluffy bow, and his mustache, oh dear, had turned into a curly pink heart. "Mon Dieu," he gasped, looking in a cracked mirror. I am magnifique, but also
très sparkly. Natasha burst out laughing so hard she had to hold her sides. "You look like a disco ball cowboy."
Pippa squealed with delight.
"Your turn, pretty dress lady.
She twirled and splashed Natasha with sky blue paint mixed with golden sparkles.
Suddenly Natasha's dress poofed, even bigger, like cartoon physics, defying bigger. And little animated stars started orbiting her head like a personal galaxy.
Jean-Pierre struck a real pose,
which looked ridiculous in pink.
Natasha,
the card was right,
we must introspect.
But first we paint the whole town.
What followed was the most gloriously chaotic introspection session in history. Pippa led the charge, they painted the saloon bubblegum pink with dancing polka dot cows on the walls. The general store got rainbow stripes and a giant mural of Jean-Pierre dramatically proposing to a croissant.
The sheriff's office, which were really just a porch, now had motivational posters that said things like claim your space and also claim more glitter.
Natasha kept trying to quiet her mind by sitting on a barrel, but every time she closed her eyes, Pippa would sneak up and paint happy little mustaches on her cheeks or turn her head scarf into a spinning propeller beanie.
Jean-Pierre attempted deep reflection by reciting poetry.
In this moment of quiet I see a pink mustache on moi. C'est tragique mais aussi magnifique.
Pippa, dripping with joy, zoomed around yelling, this is introspection. Looking inside and finding color.
By sunset, the entire town looked like a candy-colored fever dream. The townsfolk emerged from hiding, jaws dropped and started laughing and joining in. Someone started a conga line, a horse, a real one this time. Got painted with zebra stripes and seemed oddly proud.
Exhausted, covered in paint, and still giggling, Jean-Pierre and Natasha collapsed
on a bench outside the newly redecorated bakery.
Jean-Pierre took Natasha's paint, splattered him ma chérie. Perhaps his introspection was not about silence, perhaps it was about this.
He gestured at the colorful chaos around them, finding joy inside the mess and painting it everywhere.
Natasha smiled, her eyes sparkling brighter than Pippa's paint. I claim time and space for myself, and for you, silly cowboy, and maybe for Pippa too.
Pippa bounced between them, dripping pink tears of happiness.
Group hug,
but careful, I'm still wet.
They hugged anyway, paint went everywhere again.
And from that day on, whenever anyone in dusted paper saw Gulch felt overwhelmed by life's challenges, they didn't retreat to silence. They went to the shed, asked Pippa for help, and painted their feelings loud, joyful, messy, and full of love.
Because sometimes the best way to introspect is to make everything ridiculously, wonderfully pink.
The end messy and full of love.
Because sometimes the best way to introspect is to make everything ridiculously, wonderfully pink.
The end